Good evening, everyone. I'm Aleta Villanueva, an assistant professor at the Faculty of Education of the UP Open University. I'll be one of the hosts of today's first episode of Open Talk. Open Talk is an online magazine program that shall feature different topics and concerns of the various members of the community. Joining me tonight as host is Dr. Diego Maranan, an associate professor from the Faculty of Information and Communication Studies.
Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. My warm greetings to everyone, especially to our viewers and participants. And thank you all for joining us tonight. As mentioned by Dr. Aleta and Dr. Diego, this is our pilot episode, our first broadcast for our Open Talk program. So I just want to welcome you all and give you some briefer why this program, why Open Talk, and why the UP Open University is embarking on this program called Open Talks. First, as we all know, the educational ecosystem does not only comprise the teaching and learning events anchored on the curriculum and courses. There are still other important elements, like having a venue for an open discussion of issues and concerns that are outside the usual lessons or topics that we discuss in the classroom, be it a virtual or physical classroom. What we exactly need is a platform, probably a digital platform like the one that we have now, um, for an open or a free discussion, isang bukas at malayang talakayan ng mga bagay-bagay na labas sa kadalasan pinag-uusapan natin sa ating mga kurso. So being able to listen or be part of an open discussion can really help everyone, those who are in the teaching and learning environment, develop that critical thinking or perspective. So we hope that this program, Open Talk, can provide that venue or platform for us to express the varying perspectives on opinions that are academically grounded. So open, because just like any other initiatives that we have at UPOU, we want this program to be inclusive, not only to those who will be directly involved as guests or panelists, our host, but also for those who will be participating, like our listeners or viewers. So the use of internet-enabled platforms like YouTube and Facebook Live will hopefully enhance this inclusion aspect, especially on the part of our listeners or viewers. Of course, webcasting is more aligned with the culture of the University of UPOU, and that is harnessing the affordances of modern information and communication technologies. So we also want to veer away from the usual format of webinar session. That's why we have this. And as also mentioned by by Dr. Diego Maranan, our pilot episode this week is cultivating the culture of open education, which is part of our celebration of the Open Education Week. So we are one with the world in celebrating the Open Education Week. And what is the best way to do this? But of course, looking at open education and really examining what is it, and how we can practice it, especially for us at the Open University. So I thank our two guest panelists today in our episode today, um, which we can probably look back. Our episode today is a milestone already. And having our two guests tonight, uh, Professor Emeritus Dr. Grace Xavier Alfonso and Senior Secretariat Director Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascua Valenzuela, represented by Rafi Cada this afternoon. They are both known advocates of open education, and I'm sure we will have a very lively discussion about the culture or the practice of open education. And I also thank our Open Talk team headed by our Multimedia Center for taking on this challenge of crafting and producing this program. There is a gap that this initiative could address as we continue to shape the framework of the University of the Future, our continuing discourse about the University of the Future, which may be actually an open university. So I also thank our program host. We have today with us Dr. Diego Maranan and Dr. Aleta Villanueva. Thank you both for your support and cooperation, and also for taking on the challenge of hosting our pilot episode. Of course, there will be other hosts in our next episodes, all of them competent and well versed about the topics that will be featured. Again, to all of you, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you will be our constant companions in the succeeding episodes. Magandang araw sa ating lahat.
Thank you, Chansey Mel. Let me just share a few words about our few speakers today. So we have Ma'am Gigi. She's a true advocate for lifelong learning and technology-mediated education, particularly open distance learning, e-learning. And she used to be the chancellor of UP Open University. In fact, when I came in at the Open University, she was my chancellor then. Now, she is a multimedia artist. She is creating hundreds of materials as oral histories of thought leaders for open educational resources in the sciences, social science. Hi, ma'am. How are you?
Hello, hi, Dr. Aleta. How are you?
Yes.
Good
So, yes, ma'am. We're fine, but Mom Ethel Agnes Pasca Valenzuela is supposed to be with us today, but she cannot join us for some family situation. But let me also introduce her. Dr. Ethel Agnes Valenzuela is the director of the CIMEO Secret. There. Hi, sir. How
Good
are you?
afternoon to everyone watching us on YouTube Live and on Facebook. It's a pleasure to represent Dr. Ethel in this very important and very groundbreaking initiative of the University of the Philippines, my alma mater also.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Kada. Just a reminder for our audience, if any questions come to mind during tonight's discussion, please post them through whatever platform we're using to view tonight's discussion, whether it's on the UPOU Network's website, our Facebook page, or UPOU's YouTube channel. So now we start our discussion with Dr. Alfonso, giving us an overview of what open education is and what mechanisms are available in the Philippines that can enable the country to adopt open education. Dr. Alfonso?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Diego. May I share my slides? This is just a brief talk, but allow me to share my slides. Creating culture of openness in education, and it's really answering you gave me this question, right? What is openness in education, and what is open education? Let me, there's a worldwide movement, and that's why we're celebrating this week. And can you see in that slide, University of the Philippines, Open University, is part of this worldwide getting together of everyone who believe in open education. So let me now talk about openness in education. And here, when you put together openness and education, then you talk about bringing in also all the concepts in the field of study and discipline, and also traditional emerging philosophies and governance management pedagogies, modalities, and methodologies. And so there you have also the practice of openness in education, where you have open source, open data, access, open admissions, open learning, open educational resources, and also, coming up with MOOCs and open and distance learning and open and distance e-learning. So let me now go into the second question. What are the mechanisms present, available in the Philippines, that shall enable practice of or adoption of open education in the Philippines? Let me start by going back to that slide. And as you see, we have been doing MOOCs and also open educational resources, but that is just part of it. And our Chansey Mel has been involved in that way before now, which is about 2014. She was already talking about MOOCs and all. So now institutions will tell us or will give us this direction. Government will come out with their Republic Act, our laws, etc. In our university has gone remote at this time. And then when you talk about Department of Education, that's splendid. United Nations really pushing for OERs. It was announced 2012. And you have the Commission on Higher Education through the technical panel and its task force on flexible learning came up with flexible learning. In UP Open University, because of RA 10650, which was been out for quite some time, is really meant to lead. And because UP Open University is the expert in open education. So let me then give you a sort of a framework that is happening now because of the Philippine experience. We know we're the top 10 riskiest countries, abundance suspension of education. And then, Philippines all over the world. And we talk about Filipinos all over our archipelago. And but before COVID, the education community was really not so interested about the affordances of technology-mediated education. But COVID-19 is a different story. All right, so everybody now reacted to it. Everybody was forced into it. And then money came out, Bayanihan Act and Bayanihan and Act 2, which pushed also, gave a lot to education. All right, and so everybody was pushed to go blended, remote, and flexible teaching and learning. So it will not come back what was before COVID. So everybody has been thinking about how they can continue education in our country and new ways of engaging our learners and our teachers. So openness has crept in, and everybody went flexible, remote, and blended. This was before COVID. This is happening already. The changes, Industrial Revolution, Web 5.0, it's now telepathic web or symbiotic web, and you have Ethic 5.0, everything is changing. And this was considered as disruption to the traditional teaching and learning. But because of COVID, this same concept is what is now looked at as sort of a savior and to have continuity, enhancement, and transformation of education. So there's now that openness. And, in the Filipino perspective, what do we have? Actually, if you look at it, Filipino culture, Philippine experience, putting together Filipinos, how they take up technology is just an easy thing. We are basically tech savvy culture. And as a people, matulungin tayo, mapagkapwa, and we talk of lahat ito, okay? Pero you look at this malikhain, it really is a big word that puts together uh, these two concepts, innovative and creative. And it is shown in the way we make use of technology. It's like second nature to us. So after, like for example, for film, after 2 years, it's invention by presentation by the Lumiere brothers. Nandito na kaagad. 1897, nandito na. And then it went through such big tradition. We were number 3 in the world producing films. And then now we went indie, and now it's really democratized. Filmmaking is democratized. And radio is the same. We went, everybody bought transistor radios, so on, and community radio was up. And so techie talaga. Television is the same. And now some part of it is going online. So let me go through this very fast. I don't want to take too much of your time, but now hypertext, hypermedia being linked together, multimedia through computers, things are digital. Filipinos are tech savvy, are top in the use of social media, despite having the worst connectivity in the region. So what can we say? So now it's being used. It's in the survey. The use, the equipment use is that laptop is not the top. It's really cell phones. So it's the university in your pocket. That's the situation. And now everybody's gone flexible, blended, and remote. And this is pushing all institutions for agility towards seeking their excellence, equity, integrity, transparency, sustainability. So everybody was complaining. Nobody wanted to really, because we have a very strong culture of the traditional classroom. And so these are shortlist lang to, mahaba ito. Everybody was complaining, lack of equity, increase of digital divide, etc. But do you remember this? But we were really, the mechanisms have been here for quite some time. If you look at it, the open learning, distance education, e-learning, it was already a hybrid. And this innovations was being labeled distance education, e-learning, flexible learning, blended learning, and goes in this umbrella. But now everybody is doing their own share. Odell, we have our yearly national conference, and also the international conference, and we have done a lot of research on this, and so a lot of exchanges, really thick literature about it. Now, all teachers and learners were catapulted in going into flexible, remote, blended teaching and learning. So there is a struggle. Are they doing it right? And it's really a place where we can go into and research on it, what works and what doesn't work. Everybody was forced into this. Now there's people are struggling to do standalone printed modules, synchronous. The idea of bringing the classroom to a Zoom session, but and just bring in their 16 sessions per semester and have their classroom online. And then you also have asynchronous and synchronous, offline and online. And they have been experimenting on this and trying to make sense of it so that they continue higher education in our country. And also, uh, not only higher education, also basic education. So, going through this, it is important that we put this in and hopefully come up with responding to the Filipino needs. And so, okay, at the end of the day, teacher as the course designer, teacher as facilitator of learning, etc. And connectivism, okay, that is ano yan, kay George Simmons, and connecting the experts and so on. And blending research in the process of learning and teaching is very crucial. And critical digital literacy and the push for guided independent learning. I think basically that's what we want to do in this kind of setup. And eventually it will be probably almost the same setup. Uh, we need digital literacy, but more so critical digital literacy. We need to the written text, visual, sound, movement, they're all text. So it is very important that we have to know and we have to be sure about meanings we create, representations we make, readings beyond the text, technology and the power it wields, the symbols, signs, ideas, images that socially construct our realities, and the culture of openness and sharing in making sense and meanings of our lives, our community, our environment, and our world. So, very important to arm everyone with critical digital literacy because of the dark side of the internet. This is a given. So, we have to probably go into this. It's really a challenge, but this would be a way to take away the dark smoke in the internet. All right. So now UP Open University by law is mandated to lead. We are the experts. And when we come across this is a short list, it's even longer. When we come across this, as we go on and probe and find out things, and our research on this should go on. This is our challenge, and UPOU should lead the way and is leading the way. So even what else is there? Okay, intended learning outcomes. Okay, we talk about this all the time. This is what is asked of us as basic, and what should learners learn, etc. Do you remember this? Of course you do. We're talking about Bloom's taxonomy, right? And we're talking about OBE, and this is the flattened version, all right? But look at this. The new Bloom's taxonomy is digital. It has digital planning verbs. And I think it's also good to review the way we do our course packs, our course guides, etc., and so on. And all right, so how will learners learn? How do we plan the learning experience? Yeah. And now, how do we assess? Things will be challenged. But what is important is multimedia's research, e-research, e-methodologies, pedagogies, and e-modalities, and all this. So thank you. Thank you very
Maram-
much, Caleta. I saw your face. I know you're gonna
Maraming
cut me off.
salamat, no? It's
Yeah.
nice to see, no, because I'm just part of that generation of, witnessing all those technologies in the past and now seeing what's happening today. So
Yeah.
parang it's a very interesting way to see that, and then all the research out how our neighboring Southeast Asian countries are practicing open education. Now, Dr. Ethel Valenzuela has a recording here for us to give us an overview on the matter as well, and how CIMEO's initiatives and programs have been have helped enable the adoption and development of open education in Southeast Asia. So let's try.
Good afternoon to all the participants of the Open Talk University of the Future, hosted by the University of the Philippines Open University. I'm very pleased to join you in these conversations on Open Talk. And let me start by sharing important information from Southeast Asia. So I represent the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization. It's a regional organization based in Bangkok, Thailand, for the Secretariat, and we have 26 CMEO centers all over Southeast Asia. In the past decades, we have utilized open education a lot. We utilize online education resources for Southeast Asian educational learners from K to 12 up to higher education. The open educational resources nowadays is more prevalent in the institutions of higher learning or higher education institutions in Southeast Asia rather than K to 12 providers. However, we started developing policies on open educational resources. In fact, we have worked with the University of the Philippines Open University in some of our projects aligned with open educational resources. All of these efforts have already paid because it has given the roadmap to work together in terms of developing the regional resources based on these OERs. Let us have a closer look at some of the open education and online education provided by Southeast Asian countries. To start with, I would like to go to Brunei Darussalam. They have this vision, which we call as Wawasan 2035. It supports quality, open educational resources. In terms of Cambodia, they have open educational resources, Cambodia, developed by Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport. In terms of the Open University, University Terbuka was opened and provided resources for open and distance learning. This is by Indonesia. Lao PDR has the digital learning platform by UNICEF, European Union, GPE, and Lao government. And in Malaysia, they have also established the Open University Malaysia, and the national e-learning policy was developed. There are several massive open online courses that are made available in many institutions of higher learning. Myanmar had a big change in terms of mainstreaming e-education, especially during the COVID pandemic, from K to 12 up to higher education. While in the Philippines, open educational resources policy has already been developed and talked about. The CMOOC has already collaborated with CMEO centers and provided national online learning platform. Even in Timor-Leste, for example, the development of learning application is called Escola Bauma. And in Vietnam, we have also the Hanoi Open University, a national platform supporting open education and distance learning. So for the Southeast Asian countries, the Brunei Darussalam's e-education initiative has been scaled up, especially during the time of pandemic. There is this National IT Council of Brunei, or BIT Council, which was constituted to work on the development of IT. And the Wawasan 2035 or Vision 2035 focus on promoting open education. The government provided guidelines for online and distance learning, and the minister highlighted collaborative efforts that went into the whole of nation approach, especially during this COVID pandemic. In terms of open educational resources for Cambodia, the Ministry of Education and Youth Sport spearheaded the action to promote, developing materials using interactive multimedia, textbooks, posters, digital lesson plans, video clips, as well as background documents for MOEs. In Indonesia, we have Universitas Terbuka, who is really adept in using ICT tools, but requiring more training. And in fact, they joined us for the DCAP survey. In terms of Lao PDR, there is an ongoing development of ICT utilization in K to 12, even in higher education. And although it's still in the early stage, but they have definitely developed a digital learning platform that works for all learners. And they're developing a comprehensive program to enhance the learners' digital citizenship competencies. Malaysia as open and distance learning university has been working well since it's offered around 70 programs and comprising of several thousands of courses with a cumulative enrollment of 90,000. They have already developed the e-learning policy focusing on open courseware. And Myanmar, the Yangon University of Distance Education, and that's in Lower Myanmar, and the Upper Myanmar also have the Mandalay Open Myanmar University of Distance Education. These distance education universities are preparing the learners to be more, interactive and already mainstream e-education at this moment. There are online delivery platforms that were available. But the Philippines is quite advanced in developing the open educational resources in terms of K to 12 level. And the Department of Education has developed a lot of training programs, interactive, digitalization, and delivery of 21st century skills. So the Department of Education, TESDA, SHED also work together with the Open University of the Philippines in this particular initiative. So this is a collaboration of many organizations and institutions helping out to really reach out. The bottom line is to reach the unreached. And thus, there are many action plans and master plans that were developed to this regard. Let's go to Thailand. The Thailand MOOCs is a national online learning platform. So the goal for this is to really provide a meaningful education for all, a functional education with real value. And for Timor-Leste, this is a new phenomenon, but they have developed a lot in terms of offering online courses from preschool to secondary levels. And it's actually very useful for them to reach the farthest and the marginalized learners. Hanoi's national platform through Hanoi Open University is also something that we can learn from. There are several e-solutions provided through online learning, and they're trying to have online classrooms and the use of open educational resources. Government policy is needed to have standards and regulations for online learning, but they are much advanced in terms of this, which was shared as well during the CMEO Ministerial Policy E-Forum on COVID-19 responses. So the next one is, for the open education, CMU Council have already, the Council of Ministers have issued a statement about the need for us to enhance capacities of teachers and key education enablers to be able to foster learning environment that is free from disruption. And third is to utilize open educational resources. That's why we at the CMU Secretariat, we're working with different ministries of education to really have all of these recommendations met and to support everybody during this COVID pandemic. The above mentioned joint statement of ministers were published and were shared to everybody. Right now, we are developing the CMEO online learning resources under the CMEO Cares. We have also partnered with different organizations, regional and intergovernmental, to be able to consolidate all learning resources for use in schools, polytechnic universities, vocational educational institutions, and even in informal education settings. We are not only providing accessible education during the pandemic, but we are preparing all of this free of charge, because that is what we are here for, to promote better education, better learning for everyone. So the open educational resources are actually in our website, and you can download them and use them in your classes or for you to enhance your digital skills. And CMEO has the MOOCs, or Massive Open Online Courses, now Global Digital Literacy, which was developed with UNESCO and Weidong Cloud Education Group. And I think this is the current situation of Southeast Asia in terms of open education. It's an exciting phase, although we thrived during the COVID pandemic, but there are still many hindrances in open education, like availability of electronic devices, internet connectivity and accessibility, and technological know-how. So the generation gap between the learners, digital natives, these are also something that we should address. So, but there are a lot of opportunities in the new normal. There are so many opportunities, like how to utilize the online tools and resources to promote internationalization, to how to stay on track despite all the limitations. We need to work with partners and institutions. We need to be connected virtually and expand partnership in the new normal. And we need to listen to the learners who are actually using our products in open education, and let's learn from them. So the way forward is for us to really develop the regional open educational resources policy. We're really hoping that this can be done, and that there are more and more resources that can be shared freely to everyone. And this ministerial meeting of 2021, which we're preparing for in June, we would share some policy notes, concept notes, and programs and open educational resources we have developed with partners. And that is how Simeo cares. So thank you very much for your attention, and we hope that you can visit our website too, and please enjoy the day.
You. Just as a reminder for everyone, uh, you can uh, you can post your questions on the UPOU Network's website, our Facebook page, and the UPOU channel. And so now it's time to address any questions that you might have for Dr. Gigi Alfonso and Mr. Rafi Gada. And I'd like to start off with a question from someone in our audience. I'm reading it now. Open educational resources are important aspects of open education, says one of our viewers. But to some knowledge generators or developers, producing educational resource is their source of income. So how can people be encouraged to produce OERs given, yeah, yeah.
It's really the sharing, the culture of sharing, and our thought leaders, and even our faculty, they're the experts in their field, and I'm sure they do want to share what they know. It's para sa bayan, para sa mundo. Oo.
Oh, Ma'am
It's
G.
are reliable, which ones are accurate, And then when you talk about income, we have now the influencers, we now have the more famous with so many followers producing content, producing knowledge. And that takes another skill set, another competency, that discernment, that critical thinking and analysis, which is actually present pre-pandemic. But then we need to transfer that technique, that way of thinking, that mental framework to an online platform. So the incentives would come in if you have a very good education material, if you have a very good knowledge product that reflects to the need of particularly the emerging needs as a result of the pandemic, you will see that you will generate a lot of interest. And to use the millennial term or the Gen Z term, you will be trending. But then a word of caution on that, because Dr. Gigi mentioned in her presentation, right, about the dark side of the internet. So let me connect that to your presentation, ma'am. I think that presents an interesting new competency that wasn't seen even in. I think that's why I appreciate also the Bloom's taxonomy of the digital natives, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, that is a challenge again for our educators. How do we now instill that concept, right? So I think in terms of, if you look at it as a source of income, probably it's secondary. It's not really the reason why OERs are being produced. It's actually, as Ma'am Gigi said, and the UP motto, and it's para sa bayan.
Para sa bayan.
You know, I
That's
mean,
my take on it.
I'm also wondering to what extent people realize that we rely so heavily on open source or openly shared material. The amount of time, the number of times now we've looked at the Wikipedia entry or looked up a YouTube video to to build our own corpus of knowledge. I mean, it's immense. And so I wonder to what extent another answer to the question of what can how can people be encouraged to produce open educational resources. Well, we already use a lot of open educational resources, so in some ways parang we owe it to the knowledge community to produce. And it's just that acknowledgement of how much we already rely on open educational resources might be enough to get people to want to produce, to contribute back.
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah. Do you want us
No, ma'am,
to?
did you have a follow-up
It's
response before I
yeah.
move on to the next question?
Well, I like what is going on in your mind, you know, and I think what is important is the change in technology, and how to spread it and how to, and you know, our institutions are meant to be enablers to do that, to push for people to be independent learners, know how to ask the right questions, etc., and know how to research and be armed with that. I think it's we'll be remiss if we cannot push them towards knowing how to learn and how to ask the right questions and to solve it with data and research. So that's important. More of digital literacy and critical digital
If I will jump off on that point raised by Dr. Gigi, I think that's where the critical role of UP as a national university and the UP Open University come. They will need to step in because given these huge knowledge resources available online, even asking the question, I think what we need to really instill is asking the hard, the tough questions, because normally I think that's an emerging competency skill that somehow we know it's there, but it's not really directed. Hindi siya pinpointed. But very important to highlight is that how do we now train our participants with this very impersonal internet structure in front of us, not seeing all our classmates, our educators, and then how can they ask the tough questions, the right questions, backed by critical thinking, by research, multimedia research? So I truly, truly support, and this is where the academe comes in. How do we now instill it? How do we adjust that frame of mind from this a bit mediocre probably of looking and then translating it to a more critical way with the intention of getting the right and accurate, reliable materials. Because
At
there's
saka,
this,
Rafi, yeah, it's about being able to discern, kasi meron dyan very popular, etc.
yes, yes,
So how do you now look at that text and be able to say, oh, this is good for me, or
mm,
is it just creating a fandom? You
yeah,
know, so we have to know. We have to know that. So
yes.
so
It will
that's
never be a game of numbers, Dr. Gigi.
oh.
You may have the number, but technically that's not the right way to look at it.
Well, actually, I'd like to use this jump off point to a question from the audience, and it's about saturation. Um, so, eh, what are the limits of open education? And that's already there are many aspects to open education. Again, I see Mam Gigi already talked about open source, technology, open data, open access, open admissions. But and so how do we know when we've reached some kind of saturation point? And I guess another way of describing the same question, according to this audience member, is what is the next wave after open education? And normally, parang this is the kind of question that we would end a lengthier discussion with, but we only have 14 minutes, surprisingly. So yeah, so we're already beginning to look at, okay, so what happens after open education?
Yeah, we know, trillions of data, information, etc. So how do you now go through them and make meanings out of them?
Yeah.
And that would benefit our life and our earth, right?
Yeah.
Oo, yun yung importante doon. Kasi dadami pa yan. This is nothing. The exponential growth, right? So what is the next? What is the next? Our institutions will define it. They will go back to who they are, what they are as institutions.
Okay.
Yun yung ano dyan. Some will survive, but we hope they're not just for profit. That's the most important thing.
Sir Rafi, I'll let you respond, and then
Okay, so I think just probably to redirect and probably just to enhance the discussion is that when we say open education resources and technology, it's not just the online platform, because most of us fall into that critical mistake of thinking that when we say technology, it's always internet. In the last Ministerial Policy E-Forum, the Ministers of Education highlighted to reach the unreached. When they say all, it means all. And that even includes those in the fringes, those in the far-flung municipalities where even internet is spotty and even power is unreliable. So you can see that it should be a parallel direction. The development of technology should be there, but let us not forget those with low or no technology at all, because having a module in front of a student, say in the border of Laos and Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia, those border schools are very important, and their only way of learning is through printed material, and that works perfectly fine. So when we say technology, it should be appropriate technology, and it should work for them.
Right. Openness does not necessarily mean more tech.
Yes.
We have a question from the audience here. What would be your advice for state universities and colleges in the countryside in order to be able to provide OERs, considering their limited resources, especially this pandemic, and that OERs are seen as essential? So
yes, that's a question from Eric Ebro.
Yeah.
Okay.
OERs can be printed modules, can be, it's not as if openness is also equity. Openness is reaching the unreached. So appropriate technologies should be used. As earlier I was mentioning, print is a technology. So let's not forget that. So
and actually, I'm kind of reminded of yung open library using humans as resources. So in parts of the world, you can actually check out a human expert as a resource from your local library. Right?
Which I'd like to introduce that term. It's actually knowledge management,
right,
but expanding that definition, challenging the existing definition to include those who are producing OERs. They are part of the knowledge management strategies in order to harness all these learnings, all these critical information that we can get from the internet, and making sense of all these bulk of information, because there's such a thing as involution, right? So that's another term, but I think that would deserve another discussion, another
Correct.
open talk. So
But briefly,
I would
could you
That's
stop.
expand
right.
that term a little bit? What was the term?
Involution, so information pollution.
Involution.
Solution.
So I think
Too
that
much.
that term was introduced in one of the Simeo Center's international conference. Very interesting take on things, because I like to address the question. They're saying limited resources. Ironically, the advancements of technology has actually pulled down the cost of producing OERs. Before, right, we need to have high-tech videos, very expensive editing machines, very
That's
expensive editors. But now,
oh,
right,
Okay.
practically anyone with your iPhone, with your mobile phones, you can develop your own OER. So it's not really the concept of high technology with the studio, but what is important more than the platform is the content and delivery and those who are intending to receive those materials.
You know, I have a question about open admissions, but I don't think we even have time
yeah.
for.
No,
We have time
That's
for.
Yeah, open
important.
admissions. Can we talk
Yeah,
about
right. We don't.
that?
But we have to
Some
prioritize.
other time.
Oh, nga eh. We have to prioritize the questions from from people. Now they're coming in. Of course, people are always asking questions towards the end. So from Roxy AC, they ask the Philippines.
I think
So,
it's a comment.
oh,
Yeah.
it's a comment. Okay, so this is okay. Well, let's see if there's a
What
response
the
to this
shit?
comment. The Philippines is forced to adapt online learning during this pandemic, which actually brings me to a discussion earlier about parang has the pandemic actually brought something good in the educational landscape? You know,
Something
but
Filipino. Coming
yeah,
from Filipino experience.
yeah.
Yes.
And just reading this comment further, these OERs that are more contextualized for Filipino use is a great help for schools who have no access to international libraries, no access to interactive applications or journals. Thank you for addressing your needs. So I guess they're saying that the pandemic has forced the localization of OERs. Something, yes, that we did have quite a lot of difficulty before. Another question, this time from one of our faculty, CPOU, Dr. Saludades. What is the CMEO, hope that I pronounced that right, doing in making the production of OERs a collaborative work among educational institutions in the ASEAN?
Yes, I'd like to share that in the presentation of Dr. Ekel, we can see that she highlighted the global digital literacy MOOC development. So Simeo is a group of 26 Simeo centers scattered all over Southeast Asia. So we have 26 Simeo centers, and we have actually produced so many open education resources. And when we say we, it's not just us, the Simeo headquarters in Bangkok, Thailand, but we are leaning heavily with our partners, the 26 Simeo centers. And in fact, we have partnered with UP Open University, Hanoi Open University, the AAOU network, because the thing with working in Simeo is that we rely on the local expertise, the internal experts in the country who are really entrenched on the ground level, because we believe that those who are exposed to the operational realities could give us critical inputs to make sure that the products that we produce, the knowledge products, truly address the needs of the peoples of Southeast Asia. You have to understand that if you look at the Southeast Asian countries, you can put them in a spectrum. It's a very wide spectrum. You have very progressive countries such as Singapore, you have Malaysia, Thailand on one end, and you have Laos, you have Timor-Leste, Myanmar on the other end. So there's no silver bullet here. So even if we produce open education resources, it is meant to be, though it's regional in nature, we make sure that when we produce it, we partner with the local universities. And in fact, we have launched the Senior Schools Network, and I think to our participants online, they're very much familiar. So we are tapping on the expertise of the local universities and institutions to help us in this project. It's not Simeo alone. We cannot do it alone. So that's why we rely on Dr. Mel, Dr. Gigi, to the UP family. So we work closely with the University of the Philippines, and I'm proud of that.
Doc Rafi, may I just before your last question, direct, no? Because Dr. Saludades asked a question, I'd like to at least take note for all that we have done. UP Open University, we've done a lot of OERs for ASEAN, and collaborated with ASEAN universities on this. And we'd like to share it, and for Simeo to probably share it too. So thank you, Dr. Saludades. Para lang masabi ko, mabanggit ko na marami nang ginawa ang UPOU ng
Indeed.
materials, yeah, cultural and all that, and a lot of exchange. It's really a cultural dialogue. So I hope you can, it's available in UPOU networks and also in TVUP. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. So very informational, educational, and insightful, no, for today. So maybe last few words, no, from our speakers. Just maybe short parting messages from each
Yes.
our guests.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'd like to congratulate UP Open University for really leading the way to giving solution to what's happening in our education, higher education system. So, and thank you to everyone for putting this up and sharing again, pushing for the culture of sharing. Thank you.
How about Rafi?
Would like to thank on behalf of Dr. Ethel and Ms. Valenzuela, who really would have loved to be part of this discussion in inviting us and being part of this very groundbreaking format. So congratulations to UP Open University, and we look forward to more collaboration, partnerships, and future open talks with the University of the Philippines, UPOU. Congratulations. Maraming salamat po.
At maraming salamat din po, Dr. Alfonso, Dr. Valenzuela, Mr. Cada, for sharing your time and your expertise with us. And many thanks too to my co-host, Aleta. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, last few words. How about Chansey Mel? She's still around?
Oh.
Yes, again,
Yay.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much to our panelists, and thank you very much also to our host and to our participants. And congratulations, everyone. And we hope to see you in our next episode. Congratulations. Thanks, Rafi. Thanks, Ma'am Gigi. Maraming ding salamat sa ating lahat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Chansey Mel. Thank you to you too. Bye-bye.
Okay, to our guests, maraming salamat. Dami kaming natutunan. And to our online audience for joining us at Open Talk. We hope you can accomplish your feedback and evaluation form. The link and the QR code are now flashed on the screens. Can you see that? We're giving away gifts to 2 lucky viewers who shall give feedback. And don't forget to tune in again to Open Talk every first and third Wednesday of the month. Okay, so good night, everyone.
Okay.
Open Talk.